When are
Yeah.
you gonna run for office?
Ah! Let me tell you something.
This my shit right here. So this my shit right here. Welcome back to another episode of Road to William. Y'all got a special guest with me today. Stacy, we go way back. I remember the days of South Milwaukee. You know, we know our Martins and our Malcolms.
That's right.
Now hold on, let me cook. Let me cook.
Go ahead.
You know your Martins and your Malcolms, but do you know your Stacys?
That's a question that we
Stacy
have to
would, Stacy would walk around the neighborhood and recruit people to, hey, we're gonna be at the baseball. Yeah, yeah, I'm going there, bro. I'm going there. That's how far back you thought. What? I don't know where you thought we would start at, but knocking at the door, yo. And you always had like a crew with you. I'm like, who the fuck is this nigga? I
That's
remember
right.
with my mom, we moved into the neighborhood, and it was like one of them. It was like a really nice neighborhood in
Yeah.
Milwaukee, you know. But it was a community. Like literally, everyone knew each other.
Mhm.
Like you know that house. Oh yeah, so and so lived there. Like you're like what?
That's what I miss the most.
Yeah,
Like communities, what communities do you see like that
I'm not
where
done cooking yet. I wasn't done introducing.
you go ahead and finish? I didn't know you had to saute it. Go ahead, go ahead.
Had sauteed. See, everybody want microwave.
Okay, you go ahead and finish
This gonna
sauteing.
be a long interview. Sit tight. Get your dinner.
I got you.
We don't eat snacks here. We eat dinner.
We eat dinner, we
We can
feast.
sit back, reflect, think. We're about to hit you with game.
That's right.
Okay, this grown people. If you ain't
That's right.
grown, no, please. We grown. But look, no, I just want to give you your flowers now. And I want the world to see you now and see as you grow because I've been seeing you grow as an individual, as a young black man. You were fighting for your community in ways where it really did build. You were building community without you even really knowing. Like there was this, and you can if you remember the name, but they would always hold every summer, like right before school started in the summer. It would be like a week straight or what have you, every night,
Yeah.
you know, and
CSSM.
talk about it. Well, before we get started, I just want to say thank you for all you're doing, and I hope more people know about you. And I just wanted to catch you before you take off. Okay. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, you, as well as many other people that we grew up with, you know what I'm saying, in that very neighborhood that you speak of, you know, are people that look at these Facebook now and I see that we're doing amazing things, right? What you're doing, even while I'm sitting here right now, you know what I'm saying? You really do illustrate the power that you have in the space that you occupy. You know what I mean? Like you are doing these podcasts, you speaking to people, like the reason we talked and reached out to each other and you say, I really want my people to be educated about certain stuff that they're not really educated about. And then that's one thing that people like me and you, where we're from, resources and education is really mistrusted or hard to find, in different areas. So you providing this space is just you reaching out to communities, different pockets of communities that don't really see this information, that don't really retrieve this information. So I appreciate you. And yes, you definitely did spark up the conversation with some memories. You took me back real quick, made me realize how old I was, you know what I'm saying? But I do remember, where we were when we were younger, and like just pulling it full circle, how I brought this all up is everyone's doing their thing. And it's encouraging to see the communities where you're from prosper as they just flower off into the world and create this ripple effect. So I appreciate you. You're a boss. You're a king. You know, you do what you need to do, and I'll forever be appreciative and admire you for
Well, don't start, get me started. Okay.
that.
But one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you on the show is like to talk more. I see you like getting into politics. I've seen that like early on, like years and years ago, and I've just been paying attention and seeing you out there in the field, um, representing Black people. But how did you get into politics? What inspired you, or who inspired you to go that route in life?
So I always say there's two prongs to this question. One of the prongs is, it was the election of 2000 with Bush and Al Gore. And all I remember from that election, because at that point I was about like 7, 8. I was sitting in front of the TV, and my mom was really invested into that election, particularly because she was younger and she was just involved with the Democratic organization, or Democratic Party of Wisconsin at the time. And so naturally from that, I just saw more, and I had questions, what's a Republican? What's Democrat? What's an electoral college? I was so submerged into it, what I'm saying, so interested in it that at a young age, I asked questions about what electoral college was. And from there, I just got a keen understanding of how it affected communities based off of how it was explained to me. And as I got older and really started realizing who I am and my identity as a Black gay boy, right? At that time, I was like, okay, at the time, gay marriage was not legal, you know what I'm saying? And I always wanted to get married. I grew up with a mom and dad in the house, my siblings, I always saw marriage for myself, but I always knew it looked different, right? And so I started to realize how politics affected my life, right? And then learning history attached to politics, I started to learn the political history of things, right? Me being Black, us being Black in a predominantly white neighborhood or white city at a time where we grew up. You know what I'm saying? I started to realize certain patterns that was done, and then learning how that was not new, right? That's something that is generational. That's something that's learned from people, racism, sexism, all those different things. So I guess that's the second prong, right? Is as I got older and start growing into my manhood, I started to really learn how, things impacted our communities. And then I started to realize how things impacted me. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, this stuff is preventable, right? This stuff is at a legislative level. There's stuff that we can do as people to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen, to learn from the days of yesteryears. You know what I mean? Instead of still going through this generational havoc and generational depression, generational poverty, generational mental illness. It's so much stuff that contributes to politics. And I always hear this argument that, oh my gosh, I hate talking about politics. I hate politics. Oh my God, I don't want to vote. Oh my gosh, it don't matter. When in reality, the schools you choose for your kids to go to is political. The car dealerships that you get your cars from is political. The food that you get at the grocery store is political. You know what I'm saying? Even the ice or the water that you buy at the grocery store is political. The healthcare that you get is political. So as I got older, reminding you again at a young age, I started asking like real complex questions of what's this. So when I got older, I started to ask really concrete questions about like, wait a minute, let me peel this onion real quick. All these layers of what's the problem in an onion. When you get to the middle of that onion, you get to what the reasons are for the things that we experience. And that's how I got into politics. And that's why I'm in this. I use every opportunity that I could get to just teach, educate, connect, and learn from different people, right? Because the conversation that we're going to have tonight are the same conversations that everyone needs to have. Because you're never too smart to learn, and you're never too dumb to learn either. So meeting in the middle always alleviates things and brings us together as people as we educate each other.
And to dive a little bit more into detail, I think a lot of times people fall off this like roller coaster because they're like, oh, I don't understand certain what are they trying to say? They need to kind of like it's clear water. Like they need to
Yeah,
know transparent what the are people talking about. Could you
yeah.
go into like the electoral college and what that means and how that affects us?
Yeah. So the Electoral College was made with our Constitution. And what the Electoral College is basically a way for the people to be represented in a way that's um, it's equitable representation of each state. When I say equitable, I mean, okay, so California is big, Wisconsin is here. Equality is having them be the same level of Electoral College votes. Equitable is kind of different. Equitable is, okay, meeting people where they are, starting where things start from, the root. So that being said, Wisconsin is 10 Electoral College votes based off of how many people live in our state. And they break down per amount of people how many electoral college votes represent so many amount of people, which is why California is 55 or 54. They change every census. So I may be a little bit incorrect on that, but California has the most electoral college votes because they're the most populated state. And so that was put in the Constitution to make sure that every state was represented equitably. Rhode Island is 3 or 4 electoral college votes. And that's because they have a very small population. So it goes off a population of a state. And it's used in a presidential election, which when it's used in a presidential election to get to 270 votes. 270 votes is the most votes. 538 are the total electoral college votes of the country. So you have to get more than half of that, which is 270. Mm-hmm. And that's why the electoral college vote is existent right now. There is the argument that the electoral college vote is not democratic, and that we can leave up to the arguments, we can leave up to the pundits, we can leave up to people talking about it. But I'll say, with me, I feel that the electoral college is something that we do need to look at. We do need to examine if it's moving as a progressive country that we are, if it's reflective of how we want to run things anymore. Because truth be told, in the last several presidential elections since 2000, the Republican Party has only won the electoral college. Only won the popular vote, meaning the raw number of votes cast total for the country one time. Mm-hmm. Democrats, whether we lost or won, have maintained the popular vote. And so the Republican Party or right-winged individuals in a political spectrum would say that every election we're going to lose because all the Democrats have to do is hit up California, New York, Illinois, right? All the hardcore Democratic state that will never go Republican, right? All we have to do is just travel these few states in a presidential election year, and the rest of the country will not be represented, right? And so that's an argument that you can say has an argument of merit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, well, that's a good debate to have. You know what I'm saying? Because if I lived in Rhode Island, I'll be pissed as hell if I was like, okay, this election cycle, dang, these presidential candidates are only going to these 5 states: Texas, Florida, New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, and California. Mm-hmm. And then where are we represented? Right. So that's where it comes from. That's what the electoral college is. Now, for the viewers that are looking, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong to have electoral college. I'm just educating what it is. And I think it's important to illustrate what the opposing side would say as an argument. Mm-hmm. It's all about understanding the whole canvas rather than just your perspective. I told you my stance. I'm not afraid to tell you my stance. I think it's time for us to really look into it, seeing how does this really reflect how America wants to be governed? How does this reflect how America votes, right? And then we can have that dialogue, right? That's what I look for, is that dialogue with people. I have questions, answer them for me if you can. You know what I'm saying? But that's what the Electoral College is. And in this particular election, the Electoral College, that's where you get those battleground states from, right? Those battleground states who are what we say are purple states. They're not a red state meaning Republican or a blue state meaning Democrat. They're a purple state. Red and blue make purple. And those battleground states they can either go either way, right? And they all reflect back to the Electoral College vote in an election. So this election cycle, you're going to hear a lot about Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. You'll hear a lot about those because those are battleground states, and those are the states that are going to determine who is going to win the presidency.
So, speaking of the election. How do you feel
Let me
about
take a drink. Hold on. Okay.
how do you feel about the candidates that are running, including Cornel West?
Um, well, I feel like this election cycle, we have four, four, I would say worth mentioning
Mm,
candidates.
mhm,
You have Donald Trump representing the Republican Party or the Conservative Party. You have Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, who is representing the Democratic Party or the more left-wing party. You have Robert Kennedy Jr., who is an independent, formerly Democrat, but now independent. And you have Cornel West, who is independent
mhm,
from what I understand. So those are the four that are worth mentioning. A lot of pundits, when you look at CNN and you look at the mainstream media, they don't really include Cornel West because he's not really polling high,
mhm,
and his campaign is not really um, reaching the enthusiasm of voters for him to be mentioned or even impacting the polling that's happening between the two major parties. Because like we both know, and everyone watching knows, we have a two-party system here in the United States. Um, Now that could be a whole nother different conversation of where we need to go with that two-party system, right? If it's right or if it's wrong, do we need to break it? Do we need to start over? What do we need to do with that? That's a conversation, right? I mean, that's how we learn. Again, it's conversation. So that's that. But those are the four um, candidates in this election. And so you want to know how I feel about them. Is
mhm.
that what you said? Okay, so um, I guess I'll start with Robert Kennedy Jr. I'll start there. I think that, you know, he is not really relevant anymore as he was when Joe Biden was running. Because I feel like he was the person who would take those double hater constituents, the people who hated Trump, the people who hated Biden. You know, and now that Biden dropped out, the enthusiasm for the Democrats for Kamala Harris has went through the roof, and we see in the polling that Robert Kennedy Jr.'s polling numbers have taken a dive. And that can be natural because, you know, we have a cultural phenomenon on the Republican side, which we've seen. That's a cultural phenomenon. And now the Democrats have their cultural phenomenon that Kamala stepped in. And so that intentionally would bring down the number of Robert F. Kennedy because there's less people who hate both candidates, you know. But I feel like the recent news on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is he dumped the corpse of a baby bear into a lake. I forgot what lake it was. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, a lot of stuff that we hear in this election cycle is weird. And that included is weird for you to be talking to interviewers, just bragging about how you dumped the baby bear. You're gonna, you know, shave them off and eat them, but then you just dumped them in water in a public place. That's something that kind of makes people cringe. But at the same time, Robert Kennedy Jr. has a lot of policies that are very radical, and radical can mean a lot of different ways. Radical, in my sense, can mean a good thing, right? Can mean a really good thing in today's America. But in that case, with him, he stands for a lot of radical things, whether it be with some things with shots for, you know, COVID shots or monkey shot pox or monkeypox shots or anything like that. His views are very off, and that's how I feel about him. I will hit Cornel West next. I respect him. I used to watch a lot of his publication, read a lot of his stuff. You know, I love who he is, and I love what he stands for. I love he stands for people like me, right? I love I love his voice. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about him. In addition to me saying that I just wish that there was a bigger platform for him to share his views. And I wish that the Democratic Party and him can come together and really create some really substantive policies and things like that for the communities that are much more impacted. Because he comes from a stance and a lens of really connecting with people like him, right? And unfortunately, in America today, the oxygen is sucked out of the room from the two major parties, right? I was just talking about the polling. Cornel West is not polling nearly as high. He's in a single low digits in polling. So that's how I feel about him. Um, I'll go into Donald Trump next. Um, I honestly feel that I'm not alone, rather if you agree with him or not, when I say that America is sick of him. But I also would say that he has so much power and he has so much influence because it's a cultural sense he brings to it. And that goes back to the very founding fabric of our country, of what he the huge darkness we have in our country, right? Because our country is our country. We have light spots, we have dark spots. He represents the dark pits and spots of our country. Um, Before he was president, Donald Trump, real estate. His dad gave him $1 billion to start his company. No one like me and you, who grew up in a suburban area, or even people who grew up in a metropolitan area, or even some rural areas, right? They don't get $1 billion to start their business, right? You know what I mean? But he started off with $1 billion, uh, went into real estate with his dad, discriminated and was sued from Black constituents of New York City of discriminating, making sure that Black people do not get housing, at least under them, was sued under that. And then we have the exonerated five, then called the Central Park Five, who were wrongfully jailed for years off of a murder and a rape that they didn't even do, right? Called for them to have called for the death sentence for them. These teenagers still to this day does not take that back, right? And then you get to his presidency, right? When you see kids being locked up in cages, you see LGBTQ crime rise, you see crime rise. Crime was higher underneath the Donald Trump presidency. It was higher, and that should be surprising because he was so divisive. He was, he had a volatile kind of rhetoric. Um, but personally, I'll wrap it up about Donald Trump because I could go on hours. But personally, as a Black
That's a
gay man,
different video. You got to come back.
yeah, it's another video. Personally, when it comes to Donald Trump, as a Black gay man, I feel that if I were to support him, I feel like a polar bear praising global warming, praising something that really is bad for my health, bad for my communities, bad for my existence. You know, he's one of the most racist, misogynist, divisive, um, ugly people we've had in America in a long time. And he reflects a lot of people that our ancestors, me and you, they'll be able to identify his rhetoric. And that should say something, right? So that's how I feel about Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, who is the newly appointed Democratic nominee. And before I did my research on Kamala, I was hearing a lot of stuff. This is before 2020 when she was first getting on the scene. I was hearing stuff and seeing stuff about her being a prosecutor, locking up, Black brothers. You know what I'm saying? And she was hard on crime. She was too ambitious. She just had herself in mind when she was looking towards the future, whatever it took to get to where she was going. You know what I'm saying? Those kinds of things. And so she became vice president because she did have an unsuccessful primary run in 2020. But she became vice president underneath Joe Biden, and she started to learn the ropes a little bit. Right, she started to learn what governing looks like. What it feels like. I'm not just representing California anymore. I have experience of representing America, and that shows in what you see of her today. But what I wish I would have saw in 2020 when she was running against Joe Biden is her explaining her prosecutor record, like her explaining it, right? Because I feel like people on the ground, the media had questions, rightfully so, right? Especially the Black community, rightfully so, had questions for her. But I don't think her campaign had the capacity at that time to really reach the people and really go on the ground and be like, hey, this is why this happened. This is why this happened. This is why this happened. And so now that she has the infrastructure as vice president to run for president, she has millions of dollars right back behind her, staff, offices, door knockers, people making videos, content, all this different stuff. She has a full team around her. They're putting out her prosecutor record. And when I started to learn about that, I started to say to myself, she did a lot for us too. Like she did a lot for us in the state of California. And contrary to what people were saying in 2020, she let a lot of Black brothers out. She walked into a system that was not fairly put in place for us. I feel like a lot of systems put in place in this country were not put in place with the black colored person in mind, right? And so she walked into as the first Black woman as a prosecutor and as attorney general of the state and senator. But at the time, as a prosecutor, she walked in and she said, when she walked in, she said, I'm going to transform the justice system here in California. That's what she said. Now, as you know, with your job and me and my job, when I walk in, I can't just go in there and want to be like, nope, 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 nope. Right? It doesn't work like that, especially in legislation, especially when you're the top person of a state looking over the whole criminal justice system, the biggest criminal justice system in our country besides the national one. California is the biggest. She went in there, and yes, people were locked up, but guess what she did? She let them out when she got things in place and in order. More people have been released for petty crimes such as marijuana charges and things like that under her. She created a program for people to get out of jail and then get into programs that make them successful in communities. You know what I'm saying? Like when I started to hear that kind of stuff, I'm like, why didn't she just say this before? You know what I'm saying? She has such a bad rep in some parts of our Black community. And I'm like, I don't blame them because they didn't know. They didn't have the resources, the education to even, or the information to know this stuff. And so that's my initial thought of Kamala Harris. But today, I am a supporter of Kamala Harris. As of today, I know that rather if people agree with me or not, rather if it's with the war in Gaza, with the innocent poor little babies and mothers and fathers in Gaza that I stand proudly with. You know what I'm saying? There's one person in this race that is capable of winning. I'm gonna say it like that because I'm thinking about Cornel West in my head. That's capable of winning. That is way better than the opposite party when it comes to Gaza, when it comes to Black lives, when it comes to incarceration, when it comes to crime, when it comes to, uh, uh, infant mortality rates, which affect Black women more than anyone. HIV care, which impact LGBTQ Black individuals, same gender loving men in the Black community. It's clear to me, right? And me being someone who's a political history geek, a political history kind of, yeah, I'll just say geek. I know that with Project 2025, in addition to that she is, how ironic is it that the Black woman who's held this country up and who babysat all those slave owners' children, letting their kids come suck on their nipple, right? Babysitting their kids, being raped, is the one person saving us from a Donald Trump presidency for the last time. So that's how I'm going to wrap it up with Kamala Harris. I'm not here to represent her, represent anybody, just here discussing my personal views, but I'm very, very surprised at how she created a cultural phenomenon that I think that no one really understands how big it is yet. But you see it in the crowds. You see it in the money. She raised $312 million in a week. No candidate has, and then 100 million in a day. No candidate, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, JFK, you can name whoever were the great presidents have ever raised that much money. And so we're starting to see a phenomenon, and I wish her well. I'm never going to be that brother that contributes to the racist trying to tear this Black woman down. It's not going to be me over my dead body. I'm going to uplift her and I'm going to hold her accountable if I feel the need to.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to talk about you had said, I think what came to my mind was, okay, so you see how we have a division because you brought up Gaza, and now that Kamala has to come forward and represent the Democratic Party, she's also taking on the face of Biden, and she's picking up where it left off, kind of like how Obama was like, he's like, okay, I just got here, let me hold on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
a lot of things against her. They want to discredit her race. They did this with Obama as well. It's just the same. It's just a
Yeah.
black
It's
woman
the
now.
same.
um,
Yeah.
and you talk about cultural phenomena. How important is it? And this is one of the things I like about Cornel West. He understands that music has a true influence and push and can
Yeah.
make change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now they're starting to include artists, to kind of up their campaign. What is there other things they can do other than bringing artists on, to uplift, to get people out there and vote? What is some other things? Because a lot of people might not care for those artists, especially if they haven't spoken up on, you know, Gaza and different things. I got someone coming. I interviewed someone named Father Venus. He was on a while back, but I interviewed him yesterday, and it's coming out Friday. Look out for that.
Hey.
We dropping this Monday though. We gonna get them mad. Sunday or Monday. I'm in between. I kind of want to get on their nerves on the weekend. I don't know.
Trying
I'm
to
something to
ruin
talk
somebody's
about on
weekend.
Monday. You know what I mean? But what are other things that can get like your average Joe, like, I'm not going out there, they don't believe, a change can be made, or they still don't know who to vote for.
Mhm.
What is some other ways or some advice you can give people to get them out there?
So, I mean, I come from, like, as you know, like with my work, the capacity, right now I'm not working in the capacity of the Wisconsin Department of Health and Services, but that's the bureau that I work under the state. In the past, I've worked closely with Governor Tony Evers under the first inaugural Health Equity Council, in partnership with Mandela Barnes, who was our former lieutenant governor. So I work in a very I have a very governmental job, and I am the HIV testing coordinator, so I oversee all the HIV testing in the entire state. So that is funded through Wisconsin DHS. So me having that background in public health, we come in knowing that communities are not really trusting or not really knowing where to find resources, materials, education regarding communicable diseases that affect our very vulnerable communities, right? When I say vulnerable communities, I mean like Black men, Black gay men, Black women, people who inject drugs, people of transgender experience, of color, or people of transgender experience, period. There's different communicable diseases that impact us the most that really lead us to unfavorable outcomes in life. And so I understand from my everyday work how important it is to build strategies and objectives and how to reach people where they are, right? And that takes time, trust, and turf, right? That takes you getting out there, developing trust with people, especially marginalized communities. We have no trust in healthcare systems since the Tuskegee experiment. You know what I mean? So I take that, reaching communities where they are, you know what I'm saying, and putting that into the political realm because I feel like that's where it's most beneficial. Um, in public health, the resources are there. The sites are there for you to get tested. The information's all online, right? But communities don't have access to that. Communities are not engaged or educated to know how it's impacting them or the safety measures that they can obtain to really get to a favorable outcome, right? Like things like PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is the pill that you take once a day to protect you from contracting HIV. People have to know, where can you get it from? What is this? Can you explain it to me? So we have to meet them where they are. We have to build strategies on a state level and at the site level where the sites are all here in the state of Wisconsin. And that's how we reach the people. And we do that with being strategic in how do we engage them, right? If we need to engage people of trans experience, how about we hold a couple of focus groups with people of trans experience themselves so they could tell us what they want, right? Which we have done at the state level. The trans needs assessment is what it's called, or the HIV needs assessment. People are mostly impacted by HIV. Let's get, Black women, let's get people trans experience, let's get same-gender loving men together and figure out what are their needs so we know what to do to give them these resources, where to meet them at. We can't tell them where to meet. I can't tell someone of trans experience where to meet them at. They have to tell me. And so I have to make the effort to go to them, right? And so I take that into the political realm. People are not educated about politics. People don't pay attention. Majority of people do not pay attention to politics. Majority of people in marginalized, vulnerable communities don't have those resources. And majority of the time, they are operating off of survival. Where am I going to get my next meal? How am I going to get to work tomorrow? Who going to watch my kids? Right? They're not looking at who I'm going to vote for. That's last on their mind. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's really important for the party, which I advocated for as vice chair of the Black Caucus of the Democratic Party of the state of Wisconsin, to really meet communities where they are, listen with a full ear, educate with the full intention to lift people up, and then to walk with people out that door and not leave no one behind when you're leaving the building. That's what I think it comes from. And I think, getting to your point about the celebrities being used at the rallies and stuff like that, I feel like that is a strategy, right? That's not the end all strategy, but I feel like that is a strategy to keep people out. Like Cornel West, like he's right, like music has a huge imprint in our society and really can move mountains. We've seen it in history, with Beyonce, with Michael, with Whitney, with, BB King. I could say so many different artists that really uplifted. James Brown, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, uplifted people through music, right? So I think that is a fair strategy, but that can't be your first strategy. And you can't think that's all you need to do at all. But I think that it's important. If I was a celebrity, I knew I had the influence, the power to really motivate people and to really have people fall in line with what our ancestors did in the civil rights movement when they're fighting for the rights to vote and stuff like that. If I was a celebrity and I knew I had the power to have people, to educate people and have people hold politicians accountable, I'm going to do that. So I applaud people like Megan Thee Stallion. I applaud people like I forgot the band that performed today in Eau Claire with Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. I forgot the band's name, but that brings people, right? If you look at if the Beyonce movie or the Taylor Swift movie or whoever, they can draw thousands and thousands of people, right? If Beyonce says, get a gold fang right here, everybody be doing it. Mm-hmm. If Taylor Swift does something, the girls who are Swifties will do it, or the people who are Swifties will do it. So why not use that power for something instrumental, something that's really going to help society, prevent people from trans experience losing rights and protections, kids going hungry, veterans not getting the care that they need, Black women and women in general not having agency over their own bodies. If I had the power to get people out to make a difference to make sure it doesn't happen, I'll do it. And I think that that's a strategy that is an effective strategy, and it's needed. And I think that I'll just close off by saying that it should not be the end all, and it should not be expected that that's what's going to get people out. No, you have to have way deep. I was talking about that onion in the beginning, right? All these issues, you got to get to the core. Mm-hmm. You got to get all the way to the core of that onion. You got to have way more strategies than one. And Black people are not a monolith. Black young people are not a monolith. We're not monolithic, so you have to reach them out in different ways other than having Megan throwing ass on the TV it's gonna get people out because Megan's a hottie. It's gonna have people be like, oh, I see Megan's with Kamala. Okay, that's that's the good thing, right? Megan's making them pay attention, but there has to be something deeper there.
Yeah. What a lot of people I've been hearing a lot of people say, we need to demand things. Like, what is some demands you believe you want to see, or some change you want to see, not only in Milwaukee but all over the country, all over the world?
Demands. I would say the demand for Black communities to be served in a way that's adequate for the lives that they live, that's conducive to the ways that they live, right? When I say that, I mean stuff like when you look at the different barriers that the marginalized Black community face, the different barriers like transportation, jobs, right, incarceration, right, all these different things. I would want there to be more, not just conversation, but more action around fixing these issues. I'll expand a little bit more. In a perfect world for me, and what I would like to, if I had the biggest microphone in the world, I'll make sure I call into question how are young Black gay men still impacted by HIV decades later after the AIDS epidemic. That's a conversation that needs to be had. You know what I'm saying? I think about childcare, kids being hungry in America. What needs to happen? What conversations need to happen? And then from those conversations, don't leave it at a conversation. What actions are going to be had? If we have to reach across the aisle to Republicans, which a lot of times could be difficult because we're so polarized in politics today, there's never really working together anymore. How are we going to get that done? Right? And if it takes for a community to get together, right, on a grassroots level, which we have the power to do, come together, call a couple of agencies to sponsor, have a program that's substantive, that can last a long period of time, that's beefy and has a lot of different objectives attached to it, and reach these vulnerable communities and care for these certain communities. And then from there, you gain representation and you have that visualization for politicians to see how it impacts their communities. You have to have a plan. It's like a ladder. You start here, and our aim is to go here. So what plan do we have? And that's what I really would want as well, is for our Black communities to identify what the problem is, which I think we did really good and we're doing really good at, is identifying what the problem is. I know really polished Black leaders here in Milwaukee. I will say by name, but I don't want to say by name right now. But the really powerful people who do Black work, and Butu is an organization that does amazing radical work that is good for Black people, right? So we have people who are having these conversations, but what plan do we need to come up with? Who are we bringing to the table to have these conversations to uplift people? You know what I'm saying? To make sure that these barriers don't remain barriers, and be more proactive than reactive.
I wanted to dive a little into how did you feel about the Black man who recently passed away in Milwaukee, Devonte? Do you hear about him?
The DNC?
Oh, Devonte Mitchell.
At the DNC? I mean, at the RNC, sorry, the Republican National Convention?
No, it was at that hotel in the security.
Oh, yes, at the Hyatt.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I feel like that's something that needs to be talked about. I feel like that's something that needs to be addressed. I feel like that's something that needs to be like taken care of on a way more structural level, right? I think that we need to really take that seriously, because we're sick and tired of us asking these questions of if our lives are being taken from people that don't care about our lives and do it intentionally, right? Like, that shouldn't even happen. These are hotel security. So the first argument that we have when we have police brutality is, okay, well, what did the Black person do? Okay, well, the police only have this a couple of seconds to figure out what they're gonna do, and sometimes they act upon impulse and pull the trigger, or all these different stuff, which we can definitely debate that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I question what's the argument here? Hotel security are supposed to take lives? Really? That's what they're supposed to do? That's in the protocol, right? They're not given any other tools to use to restrain people, or there's no telephone calls. I mean, I hope you're not the only the security guard, you know what I'm saying, at the site. You have to end someone's life. That's something that you feel like you needed to do. This is the first time that I have heard. I'm pretty sure there are other cases, I'm not ignorant to it, but especially this close to home, this is the first time I've heard that security guards or security staff of a hotel ending someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that those people got fired, okay, but no, we need more. We need more than that, because that's someone's family member. That's someone's dad, that's someone's son,
Mm-hmm.
someone's brother. You know what I'm saying? So it can't happen no more. And every time this happens, I know that every Black person, whether they want to agree to it or not, whether they lean more right or whatever, wherever you are, we feel that because it's in our veins. We can't take that away. Going back to the slave ships, when thousands were being thrown off or jump off of slave ships, we feel that pain. We feel the pain of the lynchings. We feel the pain of George Floyd, Sandra Bland. We feel that because it runs through our veins. And so it's a feeling that is getting too familiar too, which is heartbreaking, that a community has to be conditioned to feel like this is normal in 2024. And so if anybody is calling, I mean, anybody is watching this is my call for any elected officials, anybody who really has any connection to political officials, to take my advice and really go into those communities and um, really assess what their wants are, how does this impact communities, and from there you'll be able to figure out what you need to do to make sure that Black lives are safe.
And how would you explain Milwaukee? A lot of people feel like they know Milwaukee because they heard of the Bucks and Giannis. They feel like they know Milwaukee. Now, explain to the people how would you explain Milwaukee in your eyes? What is Milwaukee?
Milwaukee is, I mean, you could probably get thousands of different answers for that question. No matter, I mean, depending on where the person lives, depending on their experience, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My experience with Milwaukee is I love Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a beautiful city. Milwaukee has a lot to offer. Um, with that being said, I would say that Milwaukee has its things that need to be worked on. Milwaukee has its soft spots. Milwaukee is the most segregated, polarized city in the country. You go on the south side, you go on 27th Street, when you get across the viaduct, before you get past the viaduct, you feel like, hey, I'm with the Latinos and the Mexicans over here. You know what I'm saying? Which is my people. I used to live over there on 25th and National, right? And then you go past that, you get, the Black community. You get the LGBT community right over there off of Wells and by Marquette. You go further north, you get the Black community. You go further east, you get the white community. And so it's really segregated. And that was put in place. That's why those viaducts were put in place underneath and I didn't know this until I met with someone for the Democratic Party, and they're telling me, when I watched President Joe Biden speak, he was saying how I-95 that goes through Miller Park and goes to the lake, that was put in place to divide the city. And so I didn't know that at the time, but looking decades later, right, we're starting to see that it still is there. It's still in the soil that we walk on. And so there's some issues that Milwaukee has to handle. Housing is a mess, but that's everywhere. So that's a larger macro level kind of conversation. But I would say that the elected officials need to stop working in silos and start working together because the very communities that they represent are connected, whether they realize it or not. And I think that once they realize that they're connected, policies will change because they understand that these barriers impact their communities too. No matter how we're divided and no matter how we're polarized, people living here and there, different regions of the city,
Mhm.
you know, um, at the end of the day, we're people, we're humans, and we communicate. We cross pollinate. You know, we don't just stay at home. We're in our regions where we're at, and so they need to stop working in silos and really start working together to really see what the playing field looks like and what the whole canvas looks like in the city. But all in all, Milwaukee is a beautiful city. I think that Milwaukee is being put on the map. As you know, the DNC was hosted in Milwaukee virtually. COVID messed it up in 2020. The RNC was just here, hated it, but they were here. Um, you have the Bucks. Nicki Minaj came through. Harley is here. Harley Davidson is here. There's a lot of good stuff about Milwaukee. We have the largest music festival. Our state fair is pretty big. Pride Fest, biggest Pride Fest festival in the country. You know, so Milwaukee has a lot of gyms, but what comes with a lot of gyms, maybe a lot of stuff that we need to really polish off as good as those gyms.
I love Milwaukee, especially the night scene. Uh,
Mhm.
I think, but it's changed. Like before I left, it started to change, and I was like, I don't know if I'm vibing with this, but I think it's important to have more queer people, of color, kind of more in control of that space because there are so many queer people
Mhm.
Milwaukee, and they do need. I believe like people need a safe space to kind of congregate. Like a lot of people have church. Like they're like, oh, when I go to church, I might have some mentors. I might have some conversations I push with people at the church. But I think we need more spaces that we control. You know, to kind of grow as
Yeah.
well. How safe do you feel Milwaukee is, and also the nightlife?
How safe? It depends on who you are. And I feel like that is when I explain this to you, it'll make more sense. But it depends on who you are, right? Um, Milwaukee is safe for Caucasian people, more safe than, I mean, I don't want to blanket that because I know that crime can happen to anybody, right? Unfortunate things can happen to anybody, right? I'm not saying that only Black Lives Matter. They all matter. We're not stupid, right? But when it comes to certain stuff, it just attaches to Black people a little bit more because we're most impacted. And that's the conversations that started on the George Floyd and I hope are still happening today. But it depends on who you ask. Black woman of trans experience may not be safe on the east side, may not be safe off on Cherry, right? Or Keith, right? Um, and so it depends on who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the crime rate has gone down in the last 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is encouraging. But when it comes to safety in our city, I just feel that we need to always constantly, it's like they should create like a living kind of tool that is used throughout the years. And don't close the document, don't close the strategies, don't close anything put in place based off that certain time because crime changes, cities changes, culture changes, the trends of crime changes, they change. The Kid Boys ain't as hot as they was a year ago. You know what I'm saying? And it's a shame that the Kia Boys was just allowed to just take all these cars, and Kia and Hyundai were not required to do anything about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and the police, like what what was put in place knowing that this was an issue. That's just one thing. But I would say that crime here, that's how I describe crime here in Milwaukee, basically.
When you hear people say they want to defund the police, like what? How does that make you feel? Do you feel? like, no, obviously we need the police, or are you kind of like, I don't know, I mean, what do you feel we need?
So your first question, what I feel about defund the police. I've never really been a defund the police kind of guy. I've been more of let's reform the police, definitely. I was more so of a let's get into what kind of training mechanisms they're using, right? Is it up to date? Are there Black voices in those decision making that come from the communities that are impacted, right? But at the time where it's going on, I had a grandmother that lived on 35th and North Avenue across the street from that pick and save. And she'll have to walk across the street every day to get her, not every day, she'll have to walk across the street every now and then to get her medication at the pharmacy.
Mhm.
Um, I needed police to make sure she was good in that area, right? My grandma got to get her medication and she didn't drive. She needs to walk over there, right? I also was involved in I almost was shot on 19th and National one morning coming back from a ball that I was at. And a dude saw that I was looking good from the ball. I was looking cute though. So I was looking cute. So I was looking cute from the ball, you know what I'm saying? And took everything from me and shot at me. I was in the car, my door was open, driver's seat here, and doors wide open. And he shot at me and missed me by this much. The bullet went into the seat. And so I understand how you know the police are essential in communities, right?
Mhm.
That's not the question.
Mhm.
That's not the question at all. When we go back to the premise of what they are intended to do, protect and serve, protect and serve, nothing's wrong with that, right? Nothing's wrong with on paper the foundation of what it was supposed to be is.
Mhm.
What's wrong is those instances where you have more racist and combative police officers than we may care to have, really abusing their power and really causing havoc in communities, really exacerbating the challenges that we face in the Black community of children being raised without a father, different deaths in our community. What does that do to the morale of our community? That goes deeper in the fabric than what people realize. And so I think that again, to answer your question, I've never been a defund the police person. I've been more so what conversations need to be had and what changes do we need to have? Because clearly there's changes that need to be had.
What do you,
And you don't have to defund the police to make those changes.
where do you like when it comes to how the police treat Black people? Where do you think it stems from of why they're more aggressive toward people of color?
Well, I feel that it goes back to the fabric of our country. You know, you go back years and years and years, go back hundreds of years. Black people are not meant to be protected. Black people are not even considered to be human. And unfortunately, we have people who are in any profession, right? But in this conversation, particularly the police, the criminal justice system, who really carry those same sentiments of yesteryears, right? And unfortunately, unlike the years before, with these particular people, not all police officers, but with these particular officers who are racist, who do have that lens of yesteryears, with those people, you don't see them in Ku Klux Klan outfits anymore. You know, you see them more so in police officer uniforms, right? And again, not all of them for the people that are watching. And so that's the unfortunate part about it is we don't know when we see them until we see that situation. And I think it's sad. I think that that's why we need to do more work on it. I think that that's why I more so allocate the money differently in police rather than defund them. Allocate the money into different things to make sure they're culturally competent to actually protect cultural communities, right? I think that that's more so what it is.
Mm-hmm. Um, Now I kind of want to say, oh, I did want to talk about you being the vice chair of the Black Caucus. What was that experience like? What was that like?
Man, it was something that I didn't even experience. Like, I feel like it was an out of body experience, and it was unexpected. Um, my close friend Christopher Walton, he was the chair of the Democratic Party for Milwaukee, and me and him have always been like really really good friends. One of my best friends, always has been since we got close years ago. And we are political nerds together. You know what I'm saying? He lives in DC now, but he was working within the party, and I also have a frat brother. His name is Nick, and he works within the party too. And in collaboration with Martha Love, who is a Milwaukee leader here, and Felicia Martin and Terrell Martin, these are all people who work really hard in the political scene in Milwaukee. And I befriended them. I learned to trust them, love them, and they, had the same feelings and love for me too. And they're like, "Hey, you want to run for this seat? It's open." And I'm like, "Okay, well, this could potentially be the start of my political career. This could be the start of me really branching off and really helping people that look like me and love like me and have suffered like me to a bigger microphone, right? To a different room that they're not heard, right?" And so I ran and I won unanimously um, that year, and I was really excited about it. And my experience working as vice chair was it was an experience that I'll always think about, and I've learned a lot from, right? I learned a lot about really connect how important it is to connect to communities in a deeper strategic way. I learned how it is to really believe in myself, believe in when I say believe in myself, I mean like really know that, hey, Stacy, that's not just an idea. You feel that for a reason. You come from a consensus where you know how people are living, you know what they want. So don't shut your mouth. So keep speaking. You were elected for a reason. You have a voice that people listen to. You have a voice that people have something to consider, a different perspective. And so before I resigned the position, I really did learn that, and I cherish that, and I value that, and I take it on. I take it every day with me wherever I go to really just, no matter how I feel, like Stacy, no, forget how they feel. Say how you feel. Someone in the room wishes that they can say it, but you said it for them. You know what I'm saying? And it was a beautiful experience. I made so many different connections. I met some politicians. You know what I'm saying? I got to have some really deep conversations with some politicians and legislators. And eventually that catapulted me to be appointed by Governor Evers to be on his Health Equity Council, where I represented Black gay men, and I actually did work for trans individuals in the state of Wisconsin as well.
What was it like working with him?
It was good. It was good. It was a whole council, so it was like 60 some of us. We'll meet every now and then, and we'll come up with different recommendations, whether it be with housing affordability, childbirth, death for mothers, HIV, different things, trans awareness, trans rights, trans protection. I particularly did trans protection and awareness and affordable housing with my friend Wanda Montgomery. And it was a really good experience because I got to take my personal experience of me being on the ground for all these years doing this grassroots work and working at different, community organizations, around the city and really getting to know community. It felt so good to be somewhere where I could actually put their voices on a recommendation for the governor to use to eventually put into his policy. And so it was amazing. Governor Evers is a teacher by heart. He really is someone who is not about the cameras. He's not about the punchlines. He's not about being seen on CNN or MSNBC or Fox. You know what I'm saying? He really does do the work for real. And it took for me to get into that atmosphere for me to learn, like, wait a minute. Okay, this guy, Tony Evers does care. Like that's one man that does care. And so I'm happy I got that experience too, because it can be kind of discouraging in politics. You know what I mean? So I'm happy that I got a chance to work with him and at the time, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, because he really was instrumental in that Governor's Health Equity Council, which is the first of our state's history, which is really big.
I can understand how being in politics can it's rewarding, but can also take a toll. What is something that helps with like your mental health? What do you do?
Knowing that I'm only one person, that I'm human, and that it's okay for you to take a couple minutes to yourself, and that it's okay for you to be like, nah, I'm good today, or it's okay for you to set those boundaries, right? That's one thing I learned with being a community leader in the city of Milwaukee and working for the government, but working for the government that serves people and knowing that I'm part of the people that the government serves, right? You have to create those boundaries, right? And that's how I feel in politics. It was really important for me to carry over that skill of being able to create those boundaries and realize the expectations I have, right? A lot of times with anything in life, you know, we expect so much from different situations, different people, different circumstances, right? Different efforts. But at the same time, realizing how you really watch those expectations is paramount when it comes to your health, your mental, your spiritual, your physical, you know, and that's what I learned with politics. Now, I didn't never run as a public official, like a senator, a state senator, or congressman or anything like that. So I know it's different, but at the same time, at the foundation, I feel like boundaries is really important when it comes to your health, and that's with anything, right? And not carrying anything on your shoulder, right? When I worked with the governor, I'll put stuff into the recommendation that I heard from people with trans experience that was heavy, right? I have a lot of close friends who have a trans experience, and taking me back to those spaces where I'm like, man, like this person died, she died, or this person couldn't afford housing or couldn't get into a house because they were discriminated against, or couldn't find an apartment, couldn't find, excuse me, employment. You know, that stuff lays heavy on you when you're close to those people. You know what I'm saying? So even though it was alleviated by the time I got into Health Equity Council, I'll say reflecting on it really did take a toll on me a little bit. Just knowing at that time that Governor Evers was up for reelection and all the hard work we did could have been wiped clean if Michaels would have won that election against Tony Evers. And so that's part of my work too, is just letting communities know, like, hey, I'm from where you're from. I hear you. I know you're right about what you're saying, but not voting is not an option, because I've been at the table where these decisions are being made from people who really do care. And you think that they don't care because you've seen that politicians are politicians, but you got to hone in and just realize, like, hey, this election is important. Like, I personally was at this table putting in work for you to have these protections. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get out and vote. But to answer your question, just boundaries, 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 boundaries. With anything in life, even within yourself, you got to create boundaries within yourself.
And on those ballots, what else is it important for people to vote for? What do you think people kind of overlook?
On a local level, people overlook, you know, the all the elections that are held on a local level. You know, school board is so important. You send your kids to that school. You know what I mean? You send your kids to that district. You know what I'm saying? State treasury, attorney general on a state level. You know what I'm saying? State senators. You know, all these different positions are big because we think about it on a presidential level. It is important. Yes, it is very important. But at the same time, you will feel the impact of the elections that are held in your very communities first. Mm-hmm. And so people are like, oh man, you know, the government ain't gonna do nothing for me. For the vulnerable communities, it's easy to feel like that. It's easy to feel like that because your life hasn't changed, right? But at the same time, there's people, you gotta be strategic and be a voice to vote your conscience and vote for who is gonna make your life better, right? Who is gonna make it easy for you to get that little bit of relief of childcare and food assistance, energy assistance, things like that that you need not to stay at that level, but for you to catapult from there and become being what you want to become in life, not operating off of survival, thriving, not surviving, right? It starts there, you know, and a lot of times I hear that people are like, oh, I'm not voting, I'm not voting. It's like, okay, well, we understand that you know what the issues are, but what are you doing to fix it? Because not voting is not going to fix it. It's going to make it worse. The wrong people going to get in there and you really going to feel like your voice don't matter. You know what I mean? Like people gonna get it. I mean, so are you mobilizing? Are you organizing? Are you educating? Are you making partnerships? Are you holding people accountable? Are you like what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And so I think that all the local level elections are overlooked and not. I mean, we see that historically they're not really participated in as the major elections are, the general elections nationally, but or even Senate elections, governor elections. Um, but I think that's really important for people to really hone in on. And if you need resources to figure out what's on the ballot and who's on the ballot, they can go to www.wevote. And this is in the state of Wisconsin. We vote. Huh?
I'm gonna put it in the description.
Yeah, wevote.com. And if anybody has any questions, they could they could send them to you, and then I'll be able to let them know locally.
Your information. I'm not gatekeeping thing.
And then we can send them to where they need to go, you know, because honestly, if I wasn't in the politics, I don't know where I would get this information from. It propaganda is so big with the miseducation and communication with people, misinforming people with different things. It's hard to know where to get the right information from. But there are sources and there are organizations that really want you to obtain and receive this information. So yeah, elections matter. Rather if it's on a Tuesday that the election lines are not long at all and you see nobody voting, it's still election day. Someone still is probably on that ballot. It's gonna make a life a little bit better for you. And if it's gonna make a little bit better this election, if each election you get closer and closer to being where you're supposed to be. Now listen, we're a country that has a lot of things we're still working through and working on, as we always have. Mm-hmm. Right? Being that we're not perfect, and it's not going to take you voting for one person and expecting change to just change your life and where you now live in this big house. And I mean, as you should, right? We want everyone to have the adequate life for them. That is your right for you to live a life that you deserve to live and thrive, not just survive. So I want people to take that from me before I say that it's in one election. It's not going to happen in one election, especially in a country that's rooted in so much oppression and suppression of minority people and people of marginalized communities. It's going to take more than just an election. And you can say, you know, I voted last time and nothing changed. Are you sure? Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff has changed that you don't realize it's changed. And if we keep being involved in the system, as our ancestors have said, maybe we'll get somewhere one day where we will actually have more than what we thought we would ever have. You know, but sitting out and not doing nothing it doesn't do anything but work against us, because we end up living in communities of people who represent us that don't really look like us or don't even know how we even live.
Mm-hmm. Also, I wanted to talk about your frat. What frat were you in? Mm. And real quick, did you see my frat video?
I didn't see it.
I don't know what you rap, man. I wasn't talking crap about y'all. Nobody. I was actually paying homage to y'all, and it was talking about like trans people in fraternities and stuff like that. But what fraternity are you in? Do you feel comfortable saying though?
Yeah, of course. I'm in Sigma Lambda Beta International Fraternity Incorporated. And I crossed September of 2012. So I'm spring. No, I messed that up. See,
start over.
I crossed spring of 2012. That's what I was saying. I said September. Spring of 2012 is when I crossed Sigma Lambda Beta. I'm number 39 in the chapter. I crossed as a captain, number 1 in the line. But yeah, I love my fraternity. I love the relationship more than anything in the fraternity. I love the relationships I built with the people I've got close to. Mm-hmm. I have a good a good handful of brothers that I see as my family, with or without those letters, with or without that lifelong commitment that we all pledged to. When they become my family, they become my brothers. And I love the experience that I've had with discipline, with the different perspective it brought me, the different teachings that I've learned while I was being educated. It really did mold me into the man I am today, and really did help with my philosophy on things that I have as a leader. So it's not a D9 organization. Shout out to my D9 brothers and sisters. I love y'all so much. But we are stemmed off of Phi Beta Sigma. Our founding father was Hispanic, and he was a Sigma. This was at the time, this is 1986. So shortly after the civil rights, like years after the civil rights movement, but he loved how the D9 was created to help mobilize, educate, and give resources to people of color, Black people specifically, during a trying time where they were trying to be stripped of those things. And he wanted that for the Hispanic community and all the other different communities. So he went to the board of Phi Beta Sigma and he asked them, "Hey, can I create my own fraternity? Based off of what I've learned here." And they said yes. So he founded Sigma Lambda Beta, and we are the largest internationally known fraternity in the world, and we rep it very well. So to all my bros, I love y'all, and yeah, we do it big. Community service, education, all that stuff is big to us.
And what made you want to join a fraternity? How to change
I
it?
had a set fraternity in my mind that I wanted to join. I'm not going to say the name, but I wanted to join a fraternity while I was in college at Parkside, UW Parkside, which is in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And uh,
They got
they
the
wasn't fucking with me. They wasn't fucking with me. And I'm like, okay, like they knew I was interested, and you know, I put in hard work to get to know them. We had an interest group at Parkside, but then I think my sexuality got in the way of things,
mm-hmm.
which is counterproductive of the mission that they kind of have for. But anyway, and I was in the cafeteria one day at UW Parkside. Randomly, I had my purple backpack on. It was a Transformers backpack on, and I had my purple backpack. And my fraternity, my padrino, well, padrino is your godfather, basically your dad in fraternity. He ended up being my padrino. Saw me in the caf. He was like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Because we saw each other around. He was like, "Purple looks good on you." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, thanks." I was so stupid, but so naive. I was like, "Oh, thank you." I was walking past, and he was like, "Nah, it looks really good on you. You should come to our informationals." And I was like, "Okay." Went to informational, learned a lot about their fraternity, about their brotherhood, and everything they have on a surface level, even on a deep level, I can identify with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, and I got along with the brothers. I got to know them, just like as all my brothers and sisters in fraternities and sororities on this watching this know, you have to build a relationship with them first for you to realize if that's what you really want. And I start the education process, and I crossed on April 15th that year. And so, yeah, it was a really good experience. I wouldn't take it back for the world. It really was a huge part of my college experience. And like I said before, it was just something that helped mold me to who I am today.
And growing up, we grew up in the '90s, so through 2000s. What was it like uh, coming out during that time? Like, what was that like for you? Because you was a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
So what was that in that time?
I came out at 13. I came out in school. My teacher, Miss G, uh, had this fishbowl activity did every other Friday, and everybody wrote a question that was anonymous, and everybody would just talk about it. And we just got done watching the Matthew Shepard movie. Matthew Shepard, the young man who was brutally murdered and tied to a fence in Wyoming um, in the early 2000s, late 90s, I would say. I don't want to speak incorrectly. But watched the movie and it brought me to tears. And I was crying in class, in the back of class, trying to hold back my tears because I felt I felt like I understood who he was. You know what I'm saying? And my teacher counseled me through that, talked to me through when the class left, and came out to her. I did have a certain small group of friends I already knew that I was open with, even though everybody knew. Everybody knew. I'm pretty sure. Remember, we played House. I was always Mama, but everybody knew. But I had a certain amount of friends I was open with, and so my teacher, after I came out to her, she was like, "Put it in the fishbowl if you want to put it in the fishbowl, so you can see how people feel about it." And I did, and my class just all they didn't know who it was because it was anonymous. Oh, someone's gay in here. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I'm not care. My friend Will Newberry, rest in peace. He was the first person to give me a hug when they found out it was me. And from there, I felt more comfortable to tell my mom. And after I felt comfortable telling my mom, I don't care who know about me after I tell my mama, because my mama loved me. You know what I'm saying? So my experience with coming out was a positive experience. You know, I ended up being in band, choir, track and field. Ended up becoming the first gay homecoming king in Oak Creek High School, second Black in history. And it just was a good experience for me. And I thank God for that every day because I acknowledge that not many people have that experience, you know, of being accepted or even wanting to go to school every day, having the audacity to get up and go to school every day. You know, I think I know that could not be the experience and the story of so many different people. I'm so sorry. She will not leave me alone.
Oh, what's your doggy's name?
This is Dahlia.
Hello.
Say hi. Stop. I don't like that on my face. Okay. Get down. Daddy busy. Get down, get down. Thank you.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, that's my coming out experience. Um,
I love that. And
yeah.
you had support growing up. You said,
hmm My dad didn't support it at first. You know, my dad felt that I did it to hurt him because we had a really strained relationship when I was younger.
mhm.
But my mom accepted me, and my dad, before he passed away, he did tell me before he passed away that he loved me and that he was sorry, and that he accepts me. And so not only my mom accepted me, but my dad telling me that, you know, before he passed away, I'm like, oh shit, I don't care who don't accept me. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like the people who raised me to be who I am today
Mhm.
pushed me out in the world saying, go, be you. And I feel like that's enough to really empower somebody to really fight the injustices of this world and be the voice for people. And that's what I strive to do every day.
How do you feel, especially the Black community? Like, how do you feel someone should talk to someone in their family, if they don't know how to, how do they allow them to have a free space to talk about anything? What if somebody's struggling with that? What would you tell them?
So a lot of times, you know what I'm saying, parents don't really parents don't really understand how structure of in be inclusive. Having structure with inclusivity involved really shapes and really can help someone go on an outcome that's favorable for their children.
Mhm.
Rather, if you take religious institutions, for example, kids, you know, parents want their kids raised in a church, you know, they want that foundation. Not to anybody how to raise your kids. I was raised in a church. You know, I love my faith. You know, I don't regret, you know, my parents raised me in a church at all. But you have to understand, well, you should try to understand how these religious institutions could be the very thing to ridicule your children and make your children feel a way that you don't want them to feel and have your kids conditioned to stomach and tolerate arrows being thrown at them that you teach them to fight against. The very things that you teach your kids to become strong, independent men and women, regardless of how they identify. Some or most religious institutions, um, they contradict that. They really serve as a way to really make someone feel like they're not enough. It is exclusive and not inclusive. It is othering people. It is demonizing people. And when you think about the empowerment of someone, when you think about how someone learns and is conditioned to that, that's when you have internalized homophobia. That's when you have, someone really not being able to have that sense of confidence to go out and speak up for themselves, someone to tolerate certain things happening to them.
Mhm.
All these things could lead to unfavorable outcomes. So I think that a family, I have a really close friend, my best friend. Her then daughter told her that, hey, I think I'm bisexual. Okay. She said, okay. She's like, I think I'm lesbian. She said, okay. And she said, I think I'm trans. And at the time, me and her were not close, but we worked at a nursing home together.
Mhm.
And she called on me for help and advice because she didn't understand, which I applaud her for. And I told her this because as a parent, if you don't know, ask questions. And that shows that you're intentionally trying to make things better or meet your kid where they are. That shows that, right? Instead of being stubborn and prideful and, no, I wasn't raised like that. My kid ain't no trans. She came to me and asked questions. And that's how we got close. And that's how she became my best friend. Those kinds of things matter. Those kinds of things really can help or make or break your kids' road to where they want to be, right? You don't want to kneecap your kids. You want to make sure you give them the capacity, the fullest capacity that they have to go out in the world and increase that capacity, like build off that capacity through strength and motivation. So we're in 2024 now, and I think that the um, LGBTQ competency is widely accepted more now than it was in the past, especially when me and you were younger.
Mhm.
So those conversations can be easier now for parents. You know what I'm saying? And kids have culturally way more support to be able to feel comfortable to have those conversations with their parents. And so I think that if any parents are watching, I don't have kids, just want to put that out there. So again, I'm not telling you how to raise your kids. I don't know how it is to have kids, but I have seen how it's impacted me and I've seen how it's impacted people I'm close to. So just ask questions, listen to understand, understand that you do have a foundation that you want to have with your kids, as every parent should have, but just see if there's any room. Can you make room? Because I know there's room. Can you make room for you to actually see your child? And from there, you'll be proud. If you can find that space, you'll be proud that your child has the audacity to live in a world that doesn't really accept them. And that's something to be proud of.
Mhm. Um, well, we're gonna taper off, but before we close out on this journey on this road, this little road trip we went on, some advice or some encouragement you can give to the audience as someone out there who just needs a little pick me up push to keep going. And add into that what motivates you to keep going too.
I guess I can start by a lot of different things come to my mind, but I guess what comes to my mind that's central to my mind when this question is asked is one day, when I was talking to my mom about something really hard that was going on in my life. It was a winter day, and it was something I thought that I couldn't get over, couldn't get through. It's very life changing. Um, I talked to my mom about it, and she said basically to go step outside. And I was crying, we were crying together, and she just told me randomly, like no bullshit. She was like, "Go step outside," and it was cold as hell, and it was snowing. And my mama, she has a sense of humor. So I'm like, girl, like right now you want to crack a joke? I'm like, okay. But I know she was serious. And so I stepped outside. I felt so dumb and it was cold. And she was like, what do you feel? She was standing in the doorway. She's like, what do you feel? And I'm like, I'm cold. You're like, so no, what do you feel? And there's gusts of wind. I'm like, I'm cold. She's like, what's making you cold? She started getting frustrated with me. Like, what's making you cold? Like, you're not getting it. I'm like, the wind. And she was like, okay, can you see it? I said, see what? She said, can you see the wind, Tubi? And I'm like, oh. I was like, no. How can you see wind? She was like, sometimes you can't see faith, but you have to know that it's real. You can't see it, but just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not real. And I'm like, God, since then that I promise you, there's so many things I keep talking about what molded me into the person I am today. That's one of those pivotal moments that I will always remember that I'm going to teach my kids is just because you don't see the end of the road, just because you don't see you don't see a reason to have faith, just because you don't see the great possibilities you can have, does not mean it's not there. And so I guess that would be my advice to anyone because that's what's helped me throughout my life is just understanding through any hardship that we're gonna inevitably go through throughout life. With any hardship, you're gonna have to understand eventually that you have to operate off of faith and manifestation. You have to, and when I say that, you have to have action behind it, right? You have to actually believe, right? And it could be hard as hell, depending on your situation, your circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that little seed, it's a mustard seed that you need a faith that will get you where you want to go, right? I think there's power in manifestation. I think there's power in the tongue. I think there's power in you just realizing what space you operate in. You know, a lot of people forget what they've been through. A lot of people have been through the hardest times of their life and they made it through it. And then they get to another hard spot and they don't know how they're going to get through it. But you just got to realize who the fuck you are and what the fuck you've been through, you know, and how you got over that and how that was a stepping stone for you to get to this next challenge. And after you knock this challenge, are you going to get to the next challenge? You know what I'm saying? So that would be my advice to people is, you know, don't give up. Take your time that you need for yourself. But at the end of the day, dust yourself off, hold your head up, and keep going. Someone really close to me said before, keep your head up so you see where you're going. And throughout life, I feel like that is like the main thing that people could take away is keep your head up. Because if you keep your head down, if you still think about what happened back there and you keep walking with your head down, you're gonna run into something that you don't want to run into. And then guess what? You stuck there, you got to walk around and start all over again. Keep your head up so you can see where you're going. And when you keep your head up, you see more, you can do more, you have more capacity, and own your space. That's what I'll tell somebody.
Mic drop, y'all. One last question: when are
Yeah.
you gonna run for office?
Ah! Let me tell you something. Honestly, in today's world, man, that's a tall order. I salute everyone that has. No, honestly, brother, honestly, I've been asked this a lot. Um, from friends, from people I don't even know, you know. And the thing is, like, I feel that I still need to plant myself more firmly in who I am and where I want to go. Meaning, I still have to figure out with all the talents that I have, with all the skills that I have, the connections I have, right? What's best for Stacy, right? What does Stacy feel? How does Stacy feel he could really help people? Because that's my life mission is to help people, motivate people, heal people, you know, and I had this passion for politics. So of course it's crossed my mind, you know, because what other better way to really heal people than being empowered to do so?
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I don't know when, I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I'm also not gonna limit myself and kneecap myself and say that's something I would never want to do because every opportunity that's been given to me thus far, I didn't even see coming. And so I've healed and I've educated and I've empowered and uplifted people with these other opportunities I didn't even see coming. So I'm not going to limit myself. And when it comes, it comes. And I hope it does come. And I just know one thing: if it does come, I'm going to be ready.
And when it comes, I'm gonna be there to support you, and I'm bringing a lot of people with me. So,
Thank you.
one last thing: a lot of people out here want to be in these streets. They want to be outside. They say we don't need marriage, poly, all that. Great, let's live
Yep.
free. I gotta be conditioned to a piece of paper. You said earlier that you were raised in a two-parent household. Um, and you said you still want to get married and things like that. What how important is marriage to you? And how important is marriage in general, do you feel?
It depends on the person. It really does depend on the person. Relationships are so fluid, and I feel like they've always been fluid, but I feel like the new generation has really helped teach us that what's not for you may be for somebody else, and what's for them may not be for you. I know a lot of couples who are in poly relationships, open relationships, different range of colors of relationships, whatever you want to call it, but it works for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Through conversations, through respect, through boundaries and expectations, it can work for you to have a poly relationship. It may bring you the most joy. You may be at a space in your life where that's where you want right now, you may not want later. Whatever the issue, whatever the case is, I mean, that's your business. You know what I mean? And I support it if it makes you happy and if it's successful and if it's not toxic and if it's really helping you grow into the person you're supposed to be in all parties in the situation, right? That being said, I know that it's not for me. I know that I do want to be in a monogamous marriage on one day. I know in my past relationships, I know that because I know how it feels in my past relationships. I did think about if it was for me. I'm not a closed-minded person at all. I always think about if something I haven't tried is there, think about if that may be for you, And I thought about it. It presented itself to me. I wasn't for it for me. And I think that marriage is really important to me. I know it is essentially it is a piece of paper. I have friends that have been married and divorced. I have friends that are still married. I have friends that, still want to get married. I have a wide range of friends when it comes to marriage and the status of marriage or being single. And I think that for me, it's important because, like I said, my upbringing, that's from my root of where I was brought up and what I saw as a kid. Um, I don't know if it's me being a Taurus. No, for the watchers, I'm not. I promise you. Hey,
We found each other.
we found each other.
They've been
But
talking hella shit about the Taurus.
they listen. It's because we the best. But I don't want your viewers to think that like I live the astronomy is my Bible. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I don't know if it's because I'm a Taurus. I'm gonna say it again, but
Oh, come up
I'm
to me just being like, "What's your sign?" I'm about to walk away from you, actually.
right. What's your sign? Oh yeah, conversation's over. Nice having a conversation with you. Bye. No, but I don't know what it is, but I love stability. Stability matters to me, and I think that you can find stability in a poly relationship. But me personally, I feel like I can find stability within a monogamous relationship and that consistency with one person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it depends on who you ask. Marriage can be important, marriage cannot be important, but that's one thing that we know with Project 2025 is that if you do have a spouse and you are gay or bisexual or, in a same gender loving marriage, protections that you have will be taken away from you. There was a time where two gay men who loved each other very much and been together for 15 years will go to the hospital because one of them fell ill and the other one will not be able to be in the room with them at their last moments or even have any kind of say of what happens to them or their belongings or anything like that. And I know it may seem impossible, but the person that actually made sure that that wasn't happening anymore was Obama, and that wasn't too long ago. So a lot of us lived in a time where that was not the case, where couples going into the emergency room would not be able to be there with their loved ones that they love for so long. And that's one of the big things in Project 2025 people need to take care of uh, by going to the ballot box and making sure that doesn't happen because a lot of people feel like it can't happen because these rights have been there for so long and it's hard to imagine it not being there. But
Mm-hmm.
just ask the millions of women in our country who had the rights for abortion and rights over their agency over their body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one day know they don't have that right anymore. Ask them how possible it is.
Well, Stacy, we could talk for hours, and hours.
And hours, and hours.
But I want to close it off here. I want to thank you for coming on the show, vibing with us, talking to us, educating us. Don't be a stranger. You could be a newscaster every once in a while, and give us the breakdown on what's going on in the political world. But don't be a stranger. Um, and anything you want to say or tell people where to find you if you want them to, connect with you.
Sure.
Maybe want to do projects, whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can find me on Facebook. You can add me on Facebook. I'm not like that. I don't act funny. As long as you don't be weird or funny. Um, so it's Stacy Clark. You can find me on Stacy Clark or my Instagram. I'm old. Hold on. It's my Instagram is Tubi, which is spelled TUBY_continued.
Mm-hmm.
So TUBY_continued is where you can find me on Instagram. And yeah, people can reach out to me. We can chop it up. We can talk about whatever they want to talk about. I'm here to help educate, make connections and to make sure people get where they need to go. So that's why I'll tell everyone where to find me. Tell everybody to take care, love on your people, love on yourself. And what I'll tell you is that I am so proud of you. I'm open to coming anytime that you need me to come on. And I just wish you well with everything. And you're doing some real good stuff, funny as hell. And you are using, like I was talking about, your space that you occupy to really shine the light that you had for this world to see. And that's important to me. So thank you for what you're doing and making people just smile every day.
I appreciate you. Sending you love and success and all that good stuff. Well, yeah. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this video. We're gonna blow this video up. How many likes you want on here?
How many likes? How many likes I want all the likes. I mean, like the video, share the video, subscribe. This is listen, you're gonna get some good content, you're gonna learn, you're gonna laugh, and you're gonna build. It's a sense of building community here on this platform. So join. My boy here is amazing at what he does, and he learns from y'all. Y'all can learn from him in different ways. So yeah, like, subscribe, and just support each other. That's what we do. That's what we do. This is a grassroots movement. This is part of it. We gotta make sure we stick with each other and fight with each other.
I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.